All right, my friends, we are going to start part 2 of our hand sewing basics assignment. So in the first video, I showed you how to do the running stitch, and I also showed you how to do the overcast stitch. On your assignment, remember your overcast stitch should go all the way down, but for the sake of the demonstration, I just showed you how to do that first section right there. What we are going to do now is learn how to sew on a button. So I have two different buttons here. I have a button with 4 holes, and I also have a button with 2 holes. I'm going to show you how to sew on the button with 4 holes, and we're going to do that using an X. Okay, so we're going to do this with an X. If you do the button with 2 holes, you literally just go right across in a line. You don't have to worry about any X or things like that. So I'm just going to put this green button to the side. One of the things you want to figure out when you're doing buttons is how should it be placed. So maybe if I'm doing this button decoratively, maybe I would want it placed like a diamond. That's definitely an option. Or perhaps I want it placed like a square, just like that. Either is fine. Before I can actually start though, I need to thread my hand sewing needle. So I have my needle right here and I have my thread. I'm going to move the assignment out of the way so we can see a little bit clearer. The first step is going to be to get 1 arm's length of our thread. So I'm measuring out 1 arm's length. Obviously, it's off camera. You won't be able to see that. And then you cut your thread. Cut. There we go. Now we have our thread and our needle. And I am going to place my thread through the eye of the needle and then match up my ends. All right, so here are my ends of my thread. We're going to match those up, and we're going to do that big ugly knot one final time. So to do the big ugly knot, we take the thread, we wrap it around our fingers once, twice, 3 times. We rub our fingers together like we're playing the world's smallest violin. Off comes this loop. We take the loop, we pull nice and tight, and now we have our big ugly knot. That is a big, big ugly knot, but that's totally fine because we're not going to actually end up seeing it on the back of our fabric. So whenever we are hand sewing, we want to make sure that all of our knots are on the same side. So here we have a knot, here we have a knot. This is also the side that I would be placing my needle in. So I place my button exactly where I want that to be, and I am going to bring my needle underneath and just kind of find one of those holes. There we go. There's that first hole, and I pull nice and tight. My big ugly knot is holding everything in place. I flip back over. At this point, I'm going to go across, stick my needle in, and pull nice and tight. Okay, I'm going to do that a minimum of 3 times. So I dive my needle back through the back side of the fabric, pull nice and tight, and I come across. Going to do that again through the back. And sometimes you might need to just flip it over to figure out where did you put it in the first time. Find that space. Come on. Where are you? There we go. That's the correct hole. Pull nice and tight. Perfect. All right, so that's the first part. Now I want to go my thread this way. So I'm going to go into the back and find this top hole. And I come across. And again, I'm going to do that 2 more times for a total of 3 times. X. 1 more time. X. Perfect. All right, at this point, I want to secure these stitches. So I'm actually going to flip it over and take my needle and go through the fabric, but in between the fabric and the button itself. So I pull that out, Okay, I pull the thread out, and now I have my thread above the fabric, but underneath the button. I'm now going to wrap this around my button threads 3 times. 1, 2, 3. This just helps to secure these stitches a little bit, and it even raises the button off of the fabric just a touch. This will make it easier to button. So now I need to actually take my needle and go through the fabric and out the back. There we go. So I go through the fabric, out the back, and now it's just time for me to secure these stitches in place. I know it looks a little messy back here, but you're not actually going to see any of these stitches. So I anchor off the same way I anchored off for my other hand sewing. I dive underneath my last stitches. I grab a tiny little piece of the fabric. I pull the needle, go through this loop here, through the loop, pull nice and tight. And as always, we're going to do that 3 times. Go underneath your last stitch, through the loop, pull nice and tight, underneath your last stitch, through the loop, pull nice and tight. I am now ready to cut my threads. My needle, I'm going to put back in my needle bin. I'm going to put my thread away. I'm going to put my shears away where they belong. And I have my sewing sample all complete and finished. My running stitch on one side, overcast stitch on the other, and my button right in the middle. You will now take your assignment. Make sure you have answered the essential question on the back. And you will just simply staple this right to this assignment, and you'll turn it in to me. All right? Please let me know if you have any questions. I recommend doing your assignment while you're watching the video, as that should be pretty helpful. All right. Good luck, everyone. Happy sewing.